All right. I'm so excited to have Allison King here. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing.
I am a British woman living in New Zealand where I have a husband, a son, and a cat. Um, I have a podcast. I help people get publicity for themselves and their business. I have a background in journalism, 20 years, and I work in communications. So that's just a little bit about how I can do that.
So cool. Yeah, I love that. I am hearing more and more about how important it really is to, get that visibility as a business owner. So I think
Mm.
that's so cool. Um, so I would love to kind of jump into your story. This is all about bravery, and we were kind of chatting about the time that you broke your leg on a volcano.
Yep.
And so tell us about that. What happened and how did all of that happen?
Well, the backstory is that every year I write a list of things that I want to do. And it's divided into like books I want to read or places I want to visit or activities I want to do. And in 2020, well, at the end of 2019, so before the whole pandemic, one of the things I wrote on my list was to walk the Tongariro crossing. The Tongariro crossing is New Zealand's premier one-day hike. It's 21 kilometers. It crosses a volcanic plateau. There's three volcanoes there: Tongariro, Ruapehu, and Ngauruhoe. And I didn't get to do it in 2020 because, well, I didn't get my stuff together in time before the pandemic.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, and then I was going to do it in 2021, and I was going booked onto a trip to do it with a bunch of other friends, but the weather was too bad. So it's 2.5 hours south of where I live, and because it's a volcano, you've got to be really careful about the weather because it's really high up. And if the weather's too bad, then there's no chance going because you'll end up having to be rescued, um,
Yeah,
which
how
happened to me
scary.
anyway. Yeah. So rolling on to 2022, it was January, and a couple of friends of mine were like, "Oh yeah, we're going to come down your way, and then we're going to go and do the Tongariro crossing." I was like, "Oh, can I join you?" And I'm like, "Sure." We're already going. It would be good to have some extra company. And so we set off to go on this walk. Now, the day before, I'd done Park Run, which is where I met these friends, Vicky and Stu. I don't know. Do you have Park Run where you are? Or do you know
No.
what it is? No.
Mm-mm.
So it's a global event. It's a free weekly timed 5K run or walk. You can run it, you can walk it, you can run and walk it, you can do it with a buggy, you can walk your dog. It's for anyone of any ability. So
So
we'd done that the
cool.
day before, and I'd had a really, really good run. Like I'd had a string of bad runs, and then I had this really, really good run. And I was like, awesome, I'm going to have all these plans for the rest of the summer and going into autumn, and I'm going to get fitter and faster, and it's going to be the best running year ever. And then the next day, I broke my ankle.
Uh,
So this mountain, it's a 21K hike, and we parked at one end, you get a bus to the other end, and then you walk. You have to do all the hard stuff in the first half. Like you're constantly climbing up and up and up.
wow.
Yeah, but it's an amazing walk. And during COVID, when people weren't able to come into New Zealand, it was a really good time to do it. But when we did it, it was just like so much traffic on the mountains. If
Mm.
you can imagine, just like people in front of you and people behind you. So we were still just getting like the tourists coming back, but it
Hmm.
was mostly Australians and Kiwis, but it was still pretty busy. Um, yes, we were walking on this mountain, beautiful blue sky day. You can just imagine like it's middle of summer, not a cloud to be seen. You can see for miles around you, and just really enjoying the moment of, yeah, just being outside and doing something that had been on my list for such a long time. Because if
Yeah,
I could
how
roll,
amazing.
yeah. Well, I've actually done this walk before, but it was 2010 and it was Christmas Day and the weather was terrible. I say terrible. It was doable to do the walk, but we had very little visibility. And there's a section on the walk as you're coming down from the highest point, and you can see these beautiful emerald blue, well, blue and green lakes. They're
Mm.
absolutely stunning. There's heaps of photos. That's what sold the walk to me. But the first time I did the walk, I couldn't see the lakes until we were almost in them because there was such low cloud and it
Yeah.
was really windy and we were, had all our layers on and just wanted to just get to the end because it was so
Mhm.
cold and wet. So I told myself, all I want to do is see the lakes. I just want to see the lakes and be at the top of the mountain. I was like, oh, I can just about see the lakes. And we start coming down. And the first bit coming down is really, really tricky. It's, like you're sliding down like sand or anything like
Mhm.
kind of loose rock in the. So a lot of people like try to go like zigzag, or some people just run down. Some people slide down on their bum
Wow. That's
because it
probably what I
goes
would
like
do.
it's almost like ankle deep in parts. And people
Wow.
like, so when I told people that I'd broken my ankle, like after the fact, they're like, "Oh, did you do it on the scree?" And it's like, "No, I didn't do it on the scree. I got through the what I thought was the really dangerous part
Yeah.
unscathed." And the next section is still downhill, but it's a lot firmer. And the surface I can liken to is marbles on a dance floor. So
Mm.
you got the hard surface, but you've got these little rocks on the top. And I was literally like 2 meters onto that section, and I could see my friends Vicky and Stu just up ahead. And I thought, oh, I can make up some speed here and catch up to them.
Mhm.
I was wearing my running shoes because we were going quite fast, and I had a walking pole just to have extra stability. And my left foot, I'd planted my left foot, and that was quite solid on the ground. It really good, you know, it was not moving. And then I stepped with my right foot and the pole I was using in my right hand, and I put those down. And then my right foot slipped and the pole slipped, and I fell backwards.
Oh
But
no.
and I landed, I landed on my back and my butt.
Oh.
And as I landed, my left leg came up in the air, and my foot was dangling.
Oh no.
And it was at that point that I knew I had broken it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How scary. Have you ever broken a bone before?
I've never broken anything,
Oh. Oh no.
but I just knew that my foot shouldn't be in that position. And I thought,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I must have broken my ankle. Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. What now?
yeah. So I remember just like falling back and going, Vicky, I think I've broken my ankle. And the two women who were sat on the rock they were having a breather, having done that really hard scree section. They
Yeah.
just looked over and were like, like they took such a sharp intake of breath and their hands went to their faces because they were
Yeah.
horrified, I think.
Yeah. I bet. And then like you're in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, we were halfway on this walk. So I'd done like 10 Ks at that point. And yeah, so halfway, still on the side of the mountain slash volcano. It's dormant. It may even be extinct.
Oh, good.
There's no chance of Tongariro erupting, I don't think. Ruapehu, which is next door, is still bubbling away. But it's pretty safe to cross.
Bubbling, but still pretty safe. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like the aeroplanes fly over Mount Ruapehu, which is pretty cool. You can look into the crater
Wow.
lake. Yeah.
That's cool. Okay, so what
Yeah.
happened next? How did you get off
So
the mountain?
so where we were, you don't have great mobile reception, your cell phone reception.
Yeah.
But luckily, the two women who were on the rock, they were cool. It's like they were like, "What do we do? What do we do?" And so, for some background, I said before, I've worked in journalism for 20 years. One of my past jobs was working on the newspaper, which covered stories about rescues off the mountain. And my communications job is in a hospital. So I knew then it's like, right, well, we need to call for a rescue helicopter.
Yeah.
So that's the normal just emergency number, because it's the ambulance service really. And I knew where I would be going. I knew which hospital I would be taken to. Just the nature of my injury. It's like I knew I wouldn't be going to the nearest hospital because they are only a very small rural hospital who don't deal with orthopedic patients. I knew I wouldn't go to the bigger of the hospitals in our region because I didn't have a brain injury or a spinal injury. So nothing too complicated. It was just the ankle. So I thought, I'm going to the hospital in my hometown. Awesome. I don't have to drive the 2.5 hours back.
Right.
which was the main thing for me. I mean, I'd seen the lakes. The lakes, I could see them from where I was lying down. Yeah. So when I knew I'd broken it, I thought, I'm not going to try to stand up. I'm not even going to move. I just lay in the path where I was. People had to move around me, but it was wide enough. The two ladies called for the rescue helicopter, and my friend Vicky had gone further down, a little bit further down, to see if she could get mobile reception, because that was before the other women had got it. And she also found a nurse.
Oh, that's good.
Who was on holiday and had a first aid kit on her. So she came up and she was assessing the ankle while the other women were on the phone, and was able to give some basic details about the injury, so they knew what they were coming into. Then a guide came down the mountain, so you can do a guided walk a guided hike on the crossing. And I remember them saying, I'm sorry to say it, you're just a statistic.
Oh, wow.
It's like, people break their ankles here all the time.
Wow.
Yeah. Here's some ibuprofen.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. So then everyone just went on their way, and Vicky and Stu stayed with me, and the helicopter was on its way. It's a 45-minute flight from where they are. And luckily they'd had a really busy night. So we set off at 7:30 in the morning, and it was about 10:20 when I had my little slip. They'd been busy all night, like lots of missions all around the area. They cover a wide region, but they were back at the base, and they'd been back for about half an hour when my call came through. So they were able to come straight out.
Oh, wow. That's
yeah,
good.
paired on top of having a blue sky day, so no weather conditions that they need to worry about. It was an easy flight for them. So we just waited for them and wondering which area was the helicopter going to come in from. And I
Yeah,
gave
and
my
where are they going to land? I mean, I'm sure they're experts at this, but that would be
yeah.
like, oh my gosh, how do they land?
Well, if we roll back like an hour further back in the walk, I remember we were walking and going, this would be a great location for like a Mission Impossible film. Where would the helicopter fly in from? And then sure enough, it's like, hey, this is our Mission Impossible film. Where's the helicopter going to fly in from?
Yeah.
And so we just watched it coming over. I'm like, where are they going to land? Are they going to land down there? Are they going to land down there? And they landed they went straight to the lakeside. Like there's 3 lakes, and there was a space, for the helicopters to land and for them to walk up. It's like, they've done this heaps of times. Like we just told them roughly where we were, and they knew exactly where we were.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember Stu was waving his jacket just to show them where we were. It was like, they might be able to spot us, I'm just lying down.
Yeah. Were you in a lot of pain?
No,
Oh,
I
okay,
had
that's
I had
good.
no pain at all, which is, I guess, when you do something like that the adrenaline kicks in, and
Yeah,
just as a
takes over.
preservation. Yeah, so I didn't have any pain for a good couple of hours.
That's good.
Yeah. So yeah, the helicopter landed, and the paramedic climbed out carrying his big backpack of stuff. And he comes up, and the nurse had wrapped a bandage around my ankle just as a support. So he unwound that and had a look, and he's like, oh yeah, that's broken. So then he put another bandage and kind of like, not even a splint, but just something hard around it, around the back and then underneath my foot, because I had to hobble a bit
Mm-hmm.
to be able to get out of where we were, because where we were was still quite steep for the helicopter.
Yeah.
And so the crewman came up and the pilot came up. So there were three of them in the helicopter. They work, in threes. And I had to get about 50 meters back down the mountain. So I had the paramedic on one side with his arm like firmly around my waist, and I had the crewman on the other side with his arm firmly around my waist, and the
Yeah.
pilot in front of me. And I'd have to hop, and the pilot, he was using his boot as like a stopper for me for my good foot.
Mm-hmm.
So that one didn't
Oh.
slip over.
Wow, what an adventure.
Yeah. So we got to a rock, and I sat on a rock, and I got these goggles, like safety glasses on. And the helicopter, they took off, and then they hovered, resting just one skid on the path because it was still, a reasonable angle. So they, rested the skid, and he's like, right, you're gonna have to hop in. So like, had to get myself in the helicopter backwards, shuffle over, get into the stretcher bed thing that they have in the back there, lie myself down.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And then he was like, are you sure you don't need any pain medication? I can give you some. I was like, no, I'm all good.
Wow. And did your friends complete the walk after that?
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. So they wanted to beat another friend of theirs who was running it,
Mm.
and she passed us while we were waiting. But no, they carried on. They carried on with my keys, because I didn't want to fly off in the helicopter with my keys and leave my car in the car park. Um,
Mm.
and yeah, they carried on, and they had the rest of the day, and they didn't need to rush to come back to the hospital because I was
Yeah.
being taken care of.
Yeah.
So it was a long weekend. So that was a Saturday. It was on the Sunday that we did it. So we had the Monday was a public holiday, so they
Mm.
still had some more sightseeing to do.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah. So then flew to my work, where I was greeted by the attendant who opened the helicopter once we landed. So it was a 45-minute flight, which was, yeah, it was all right. I mean, people are like, oh, you'll do anything for a helicopter ride, but in the work I've done, I've been in heaps of helicopters, so it's no big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. That's hilarious.
Yeah. And yeah, and the doctor who was my doctor for the day was someone who I have done heaps of work with.
That's interesting.
Yeah. When I
That's
say
kind of
heaps of
nice.
work, yeah, just as quotes for newspapers and just
Yeah.
doing other stories.
Yeah, that's kind of cool to have a familiar face though. And,
Mm, yeah.
awesome.
And that was just the start of it.
I want to ask, like, what kind of like mental preparation do you do to go on this kind of adventure? I mean, it was kind of like you had been planning on doing it, but then it was kind of spur of the moment. So you didn't really have a lot of like get you in the right mindset to go on this
Mm.
like long adventure. And of course, you had no idea you were going to break your leg, but well, how do you like get yourself like ready to go on that hike?
Um, I think because I'd done it before, I kind of, even though it was a long time ago, I remembered that it was going to be really challenging, and to
Hmm.
just take it one step at a time. Like, because you go up lots of really big steps, the devil's staircase, they call it. But I knew the views would be worth it. Um, so we'd packed enough water and some food and sunscreen, which was the main thing because it was summer and a sunny
Hmm.
day. Um, I think I was just really looking forward to hanging out with my friends and
Hmm.
seeing those lakes and having an ice cream afterwards on the drive home.
Did you ever get your ice cream? Did you get it in the
No,
hospital? Mm.
I did not. No. Vicky and Stu brought me some chocolate milk and a Mars bar.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Well, how has this impacted you and how has this impacted your life?
Well, up to that point, I'd run 520 days in a row,
Mm.
and I'd done 5Ks. So that was a minimum 2Ks a day, but been running 5Ks a day since the September. So September to that it was the end of January. So what's that? 4 months, 5 months. Um, and then I went from running to not being able to run. So that was actually the hardest thing for me was when I had my X-ray and the doctor Suzanne came in, she said she was really blunt. I won't swear on your show.
You can if you want.
Oh, okay. Well, she goes, I'm going to tell it to you straight. She goes, your ankle's fucked. You won't be running for 1 week. You won't be running for 2 weeks. You probably won't be running for at least 12 weeks. So don't
Oh,
even think
wow.
about it.
Wow.
And it was even longer than that, just
Mm-hmm.
because of the nature of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's gotta be so hard.
Yeah, so just running, I didn't start running again until it was about 10 or 11 months after. It's
Wow.
a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't able to put any weight on it for 6 weeks. I was in a cast, so I was at home for 3 weeks and just doing nothing. Well, I say doing nothing. I got up, I had a walking frame, and in the morning I'd go and sit on the couch, put my leg up, and my son would bring me coffee, and I had to make sure that I had food that was available, that I didn't have to spend much time prepping because I
Yeah.
couldn't. Yeah. Um, so I did a lot of reading, and I started learning a language, and I did some of my family history.
Oh, fun. That's good.
Yeah. I binge watched some TV series. Um, there was plenty of things in hindsight now. It's like, oh, I could have really done this in that time, or I could have done that in that time. What I wouldn't do now for
Mm-hmm.
enforced rest.
Right? That's so true.
Yeah, yeah. But the main thing for me was the running, because I use that for like my mental health, just feeling good. Like
Yeah,
you feel
absolutely.
yeah. So I kind of suffered a little bit, like seeing everyone else out there and running, and just
Mm-hmm.
wondering if I would ever get back out there again.
Yeah. Well, I think it's great that you still, did things that were productive, like reading and doing like, personal development type of
Mm,
things, even though you couldn't run, which has been your outlet. So,
mm. So I said before, I would run like 5Ks a day. So the time that I would have spent running, because I still woke up just as early. Um, I don't really need an alarm to wake up early these days, but I had got up early and had a cup of coffee, and then I would do I use Duolingo, the language
hmm.
learning app. So I would just do an hour on that, because I thought, oh, that's my getting ready for my run and my shower after my run time. So I'm just gonna do this for that hour.
Yeah, that's great. And so now are you fully back to like full running and your leg is fully healed, your ankle?
It's not fully healed. The surgeon actually said to me that it would be up to 2 years for it
Mm.
to make a full recovery. But he did say that it would be a year before I would run, when I got really impatient at one of my outpatients appointments and said, when can I start running? And he goes, it will take about a year from the surgery. And I was like, damn it.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, so I still get quite a bit of discomfort in it. I recently got back from it was a 7 hour flight. I went away to Australia, and I didn't have compression stockings on, and my
Mm.
ankle just like blew up like
Yeah.
massively.
Oh, wow.
So that's an effect of it. It still swells up. When I wake up in the morning and I just start walking around, it's a little bit achy,
Hmm.
but it just has to warm up.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, are you going to do the hike again?
Nah, I've seen the lakes now.
Yeah.
I've seen
No
those
need.
lakes. I had a really good view of them from when I was lying waiting for the helicopter.
Yeah. That's so
Yeah,
funny.
been there, done that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, tell us a little bit about your podcast.
So it's called Turn Up Your Volume, and it's to help women in business get publicity for themselves and their business. I interview business owners and podcasters. For the podcasters, I hear about their podcast to help people who are listening maybe find out whether it's a podcast they could pitch themselves to, because
Mm-hmm.
I like to find out who people's ideal guests are. Um, I also find out how people have already achieved publicity and what they learned from it. And I'm going to have well, I've had a guest on who works in PR sharing her tips. I'm going to have someone coming on soon to talk about being unstoppable and like in sales and what you can do to get yourself, be more visible and the
Yeah.
stories
Oh,
that
I
we tell
love that.
ourselves.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's so good. And it's so needed. And I think that a lot of times as business owners, we don't think about that piece of it. And it's so
Mm.
important.
Yeah, well, how, as my friend Eileen said, she's in PR too. She said, how are you going to get customers if customers don't know that you exist?
Yeah, it's so
So,
true.
and I know a lot of people do. I mean, I'm the same. There's sometimes I don't really like talking about myself or what I have done or what I can do, because you
Yeah.
feel that you're being a bit show offy and that whole imposter syndrome kicks in.
Mhm.
But it's like, no, actually, I have got a skill and a talent that can benefit other people. And I'm doing them a disservice by not telling them that I can help them. And it's then up to them whether they want to, use my service or not. So
Yeah.
someone who has a bakery, for example, if you don't tell people that you sell gluten-free muffins or artisan bread, how is someone going to know whether to go there or not? It's like they might really want gluten-free muffins. I mean, I've just been in Perth
Hmm.
with a friend who's celiac, and she found these amazing gluten-free donuts, and she told everyone
Oh,
about
yeah.
them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's so good. That's so true.
Yeah.
Well, what advice would you have for someone just starting out? Like, what advice would you give a business owner that's just starting out and how, like, what's their first step to start, thinking about becoming more visible and getting out there?
You want to have visibility on the internet. So often, like reporters are looking for people in certain areas to contact for stories. So, for example, if cruise ship season's starting and they want to find out the impact of the cruise ships on the local tourism industry, they'll look up businesses who are in tourism. But if you don't have a presence on the internet, then they're not going to find you to give you a call. So it's not always
Hmm.
about you reaching out to the journalist. Journalists will often reach out to the business owner. So you can do something as simple as having a Google business profile. It
Hmm.
takes like 5 to 10 minutes to set up. It's really easy. Um, Make sure that if you have a website, make sure you've got your contact details on there. And you don't have to put a phone number on there if you're not comfortable with receiving, if it's a private number. But if you've got an email address, then they can email you to
Hmm.
ask you for your phone number and tell them what they want to hear from you about. Um, so that's a simple thing, just being
Awesome.
visible somewhere.
Yeah,
And
that's great.
yeah, and journalists are always looking for content. So, you know, you never know when something might come up that is relevant to you. You can do some news jacking. So,
Yeah.
the news jacking. So, I know what's a big story right now. So this is thinking forwards to the coronation. Coronation will have happened by the time your podcast comes out, but for those on YouTube, coronation in the UK is on May the 6th, 7th, whichever is the Saturday. And if you've got anything in your business to do, like if you're called Charles or maybe your name is Camilla, or you sell bunting, or anything that you can tie to the royal, like a royal occasion, you can get into the news about that. Or a friend of mine's got a social media app teaching parents how they can be more savvy about social media, so to protect their kids and make sure their kids are using it in a safe way. Anything, there was a story about Pink not letting her daughter use the mobile phone and go on the internet, and it's like you can tie in your business to the celebrities not allowing their child to go on the phone, but if your kids are already on phones, this is how you can keep them safe.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Just taking like what's trending now and
Yeah.
having your spin on it. Yeah. Oh,
I
that's
mean, we
so
do it
good.
on social media, so why not do it in the media?
Yeah. And it just like widens your audience, right? I mean, it's like you don't know who all you could reach by
Mm,
doing that.
yeah. You need to
Love that.
expose yourself. Yeah.
Yep. Such good advice. Thank you so much. Well, can you let everyone know where they can find you and connect with you?
Sure. I'm on Facebook and Instagram as Turn Up Your Volume podcast. I think on Facebook it's Turn Up Your Volume with Alison Fraser. I use my maiden name on my podcast, and my website is Alison at alisonfraser.co.nz. Um, I got that wrong. Alison Fraser, Alison at alisonfraser.co. I always think of .co.nz, but it's not. It's because I'm in New
Awesome.
Zealand and everything's at .nz.
Oh, yes. Gotcha. Well, thank you so much. It was so great talking to you. I appreciate you sharing your story. And everyone should go and check out your podcast and get all of those great tips and advice to get out there and get visible.
Thank you. It's been
Thank
lovely
you.
talking to you.